Hello gorgeous people, I'm back with another project for Lulu Art using some beautiful stencils, stamps, embossing powders and some Dynaflow ink. Now I haven't used Dynaflow in a while, so today we're going to make 3 very simple cards using 3 techniques and see a few things you can do with this. I'm going to start by adding an embossed background to 2 of my cards. So this first one is going to be done in clearly clear embossing powder. You could also use white, and of course just a beautifully sticky Versamark ink pad. Now this won't need very much on it. It's just to add a little bit of something to the background. Now because this is watercolor cardstock, some of these have a smooth side and a rough side. This one is equally bumpy on both sides. So the image won't be perfect, but that's okay for this purpose. So I'm just going to add a little bit of this top and bottom and then emboss in clear ink. Set the embossing ink with a heat tool and just heat until it's raised and shiny. Now as I said, this, because it's on watercolor cardstock, it won't be as perfect or as obvious if it was on smooth card, but that's okay. Now for the second piece, I'm going to use a stencil. So I have a beautiful Donna Downey stencil here, and I'm just going to place this over my piece of cardstock. Make sure you've got a few interesting bits showing. I like all of these little sort of splatty things. Make sure the edge is reasonably straight, and then just pounce with Versamark. Now the most difficult thing here is making sure the cardstock doesn't move. You can try taping it. It doesn't always work super well. So I just hold it very tightly in one corner. Now again, this won't be a perfect result because of the watercolor card, but you can do your best. And I'm also going to emboss this with the clear embossing powder. Now the cool thing with this bit is if you would like something to be not covered in embossing powder, you can grab a small paintbrush or even just use your finger and wipe some of it off. So if you don't want it, the design all the way to the edge, you can just remove that. So just simply by doing this with your thumb and wiping the embossing powder off, you can end up with a much more, not quite so perfect. And I kind of like doing this. It just makes it a little bit, I don't know, I kind of like the scruffy stuff, I suppose, because I'm a bit scruffy myself. Make sure any excess is off, and then heat set this as well. So now we have 2 embossed backgrounds in clear. That one's got the words on it, and this is the one from the stencil. You can see they're not perfect, but gosh, they're going to be pretty. Alright, so I've now got 4 pieces of card, and I'm going to use these for 3 different techniques. Now I have a little rainbow of Dynacolor inks in magenta, yellow, sun yellow, chartreuse, turquoise and violet. And I'm going to start with, I think, a little painting. So I'm going to put some of these aside, and I'm going to start with this one. So I'm going to begin by adding colour to the little pan here, and I'm just going to, I think I might use periwinkle for this, to be honest. So I'm just going to add a bit of periwinkle here, and I'm just going to paint the background of the card. Now this one I'm going to go dry on dry, so there won't be any water. It'll just be pure Dynaflow ink colour, and it might need a little bit more than that. Now of course this card is the one that has the already embossed background with the text, so we'll see how it looks. I'm kind of expecting it to be a little wishy-washy. On watercolor card it might take a bit strangely, but that's okay. So I'm just going to make a really pretty border, really simple. Now I'm also not going to try and make this exact in that beautiful resist from the embossing, and I just need to make a little square. So this is quite thirsty, the watercolor cards. I'm just going to need to add a bit more color here. And again, this one's the periwinkle. And can choose to make it all one colour, or I can just leave it varied. Completely up to you and how you would prefer for it to look. I'm going to have a few things going over the top here, so I might like a little bit more of a less varied background. So I'm just going to add a bit of colour. Let's see if I can get this a bit more uniform. Now, of course, you could add water and this would be much easier to do, but I'd like to see the differences that you can achieve by using it without water, with water, with a few different ways. Alright, so this is making a beautiful background. The resist from the embossing is turning out very nicely. Now I think I might have just not taken that down far enough. Truth be told, I actually like some of that variation, so I won't cover all of it. It's kind of cool with some of those little marks in there, but I do want a few things to stand out a little bit better, so I'm just going to add a little bit here and there. Okay. Now I'm also going to grab a paper towel and blot, just in case there's any of that ink remaining on top there. I don't want that sitting on top of the embossing and making a mess later, because that's when I put my finger in it and transfer it to the finished card, just based on, you know, prior experience. Now you also might like to buff, just to make sure. Now, because that embossing is not perfect, it's not going to create a perfect background, but this is what the Dynaflow looks like, painted directly onto watercolour cardstock. So you get quite a lot of variety. If you don't add a lot of ink, you get some of the texture from the cardstock peeking through, and you can layer it to get darker areas and lighter areas. So that's our first one, is painting directly on watercolour card. That's our first technique right there. Next I'm going to do some pressing, and all this means is I'm going to add drops of colour to this craft mat, and then I'm going to press my cardstock into it. So I have a beautiful rainbow of colours here. I'm going to start with magenta, golden yellow, then I have sun yellow. Now you can see I'm not adding all of these just in the one spot. I'm kind of mixing them a little bit. You can kind of guess why, because I would like to see what kind of a little rainbow I can create here. That is chartreuse. I'm going next for turquoise. Now I've also given all of these a nice shake. I don't know if I have to, but I've just sort of felt, just in case, it might be a good idea. And lucky last, I've got violet. Now I'm just going to add a spritz of water to these, a very, very gentle spritz, so probably 4 light sprays. Now I have the embossed card here, the one with the stenciled pattern, and I'm just going to put this in the middle and then press down very carefully, because I really want it to absorb the colours and be beautiful. Alright, moment of truth. Now, truth be told, I think that could use a bit more pink. So what I might do is, so I'm going to add a little bit of pink over here to the little palette on the side. I think there's probably enough orange, but I think I definitely want more pink. So I'm just going to grab the pink with the paintbrush and add a little bit of that around the top here. I could always just add some here in the bottom too, just so there's a little bit on each side. Okay, I'm going to put that one aside, but I'm not quite finished with it just yet. Let me clean off this one. Just again, paper towel, wiping off that pattern. Now, once it's all dry, you can also use a baby wipe for this if you'd like it really clean. You just run sometimes the risk of getting the paper peeling up a bit, but I often do that to get a really clean image. Or there's another trick, you can go and go over it with white embossing powder afterwards, which makes it really pop, which is another cool idea. So I'm just going to put this one to the side and let it dry. This is our second idea, which is pressing, where you add colour directly to a craft mat and then press your design into it. And whether it is got embossing on there or whether it is just a plain piece of paper, you get beautiful results. Now for this last background, I'm going to use dripping. So what I'm going to do is spritz and completely cover it with water and then drip some of those beautiful colours onto this. And what should happen is I should get this awesome rainbow starburst kind of thing happening. A bit like that. Now, whilst this does really pale out all the colours, you can go back in afterwards and add more if you want to, or just sort of see how it turns out. Now you can add 1 drip of a colour, you can add 2. I'm going to start with 1 and then go back in if I need to. And some of this will sort of move around the card. Some colours seem to move more than others, and some just sort of stay where they are. Now if you're feeling, see, that one really shifts, but the green really kind of stayed in place. But I love how it sort of works together. Now you can add more than 1 of each colour, just to sort of see how it works. You can add colours within colours. Me, I'm just going to create a really pretty rainbow and go from there. Now you can add more water if you like. Just kind of get stuff moving around. Add a bit more of that green, it's just not moving very much. Give it a tiny spray, just to shift it. A bit of a gentle nudge. Because what I'd like here is for the colour to sort of shift and move and blend. Get a really pretty rainbow effect. It might not happen. Let's see if we can make it happen. Gonna add a bit of periwinkle in there too. Just down here with those other 2 colours. Sort of, ooh, that's dark. Ooh, and that little bit of extra water has just made that wick and go cool. Love. Do I want to be brave here? Maybe. So I'm going to add a little of the pink. I've already got the pink. And a little of the periwinkle over here onto my little paint palette, and I'm going to do a bit of flicking. So this is the dropping or dripping, and then I'm just going to add some splatters. Clean off my brush, grab a little of the periwinkle. Now as this dries, it should sort of wick, but no guarantees. Some of those look like little butterflies. It's actually really, really pretty. And I don't know why, but I'm feeling the need to add some gold. So I'm just going to add some of my Ganside Tambi colour to this. I'm going to use the Starry Colours. You know, it's my favourite one. And while that's all still wet, I'm just going to flick a little gold in here as well. Just to add a little shimmer. Doesn't need very much. Alright, so while I've got this nice gold colour all juicy, I'm just adding it to the other backgrounds as well, because I'd like my cards to all have the same or similar elements. So just adding little flicks on top of the blue background that we've made, on top of the rainbow coloured background, and on top of the other embossed background. Now I have these beautiful chipboard designs from Imaginarium, and I'm going to cover them in obviously black embossing powder. Now it might take 1 or 2 coats to get these covered properly, but it's so easy to do. Just coat them in Versamark ink, add the embossing powder and heat set. And if it's not covered well enough, then all you do is add another coat while it's still hot. You can just tip the embossing powder straight on and heat it again. Really, really easy. And you get this beautiful, shiny, glossy, yummy design. Really nice. That's the first one done. Isn't that beautiful? I always make a horrible mess with embossing powder, but it's so pretty I still use it. Now, I just want to finish those beautiful backgrounds off super simply. And these are the 3 backgrounds. So we've got our painted background, and this was dry brushed onto dry paper. No water involved, and it's given this beautiful sort of streaked, slightly distressed effect. Really pretty, love this. Second, we had the pressed backgrounds. We had the embossed one, and then we had just the plain cardstock. And this was where we just added a few drips of colour onto a non-stick craft mat, tiny bit of water, and then pressed the designs or the paper directly into it. Also really pretty. And then lucky last, this was our dripped background. So spray the card with water, make sure it's swimming in water, and then add 1 drop of colour at a time until you're happy with the results. And of course I flicked the beautiful starry colours Gansai Tampi paint over each of these just to keep them consistent. Now, because I'd like to keep these cards reasonably simple and reasonably consistent, so using similar techniques, I'm going to add a little stamping to the cards that don't already have an embossed design on there. I'm going to add a black embossed chipboard element to most of these cards, or a gold embossed or gold foil sticker. I'm going to add a little bit of gold wrapping with some gold thread, and then mount onto coordinating coloured backgrounds. Now I really do want to keep this simple, so what I'll do is I'll quickly show you how I finished off each of these cards so that you can get started on making some of these beautiful Dynaflow backgrounds and cards for yourself. So I've added a little strip of gold twine. I'm just going to add a tiny bit of gold fine liner just around the circle. And that will help accent the word days by making it look like it's in the circle. And here we have the finished cards. Now I've kept them all really, really simple because I wanted to be able to show you the Dynaflow on the background. So this was the first background that we've started, and it was just dry brush onto dry paper. And you can see it's got that beautiful sort of scruffy look to it. So I've got the resist embossed areas in the back. And all I've done to this one is mount it onto some cardstock, wrap a little bit of gold twine around the side, add the word shine, and just add a few little gold stars. And that's it. And it's finished, and I think it's beautiful and elegant. Please excuse my cat. This is the second card that I created with the pressing technique, and it's got the beautiful resist effect in the background and then the rainbow of colour over the top. Now again, I've wrapped it in twine and mounted on some matching cardstock, and I've got 2 little embossed elements, one in gold and one in black, that I've just stuck onto the front to keep this nice and simple. And then the final card is the card that we have dropped the colour onto. And all I've done on this one, again, more twine, a backing card, and I've stamped using Distress Inks some Dina Wakley stamps just to give it a bit more zhuzh to the background. And then just around here I've added a little bit of gold paint in a fine liner pen just to highlight the word days. And of course you can see some little spots of glitter glue. And that one is also finished off with the beautiful black embossed chipboard, and that's from Imaginarium. So we have 3 cards that are super different, all using Dynaflow with 3 different techniques that all look gorgeous. And depending on the look you're after, you can try dry brushing onto watercolor paper, you can try pressing into puddles of color, or you can try dropping the color directly onto wet cardstock. Either way, it's going to look gorgeous. So I hope you've really enjoyed these 3 different ways to use Dynaflow inks, and that you might be inspired to go and grab some of your own if you have them, or run out and grab some if you don't, and give some of these gorgeous backgrounds a try. And you know I will be back very soon with more great ideas. Hope your day sparkles. Bye.